The wild 80s, greed is good era, the me decade, whatever you want to call it, everything about Donald J. Trump epitomized the times. His blonde bombshell wife, his name atop a glitzy high-rise at the city's most prestigious address, stacks of cash as tall as the skyscrapers he built. In 1983, Trump Tower opened on Fifth Avenue. Before long, the Trump brand would be one of the most recognizable in Manhattan real estate.
Donald's father had made his fortune in housing in the outer boroughs, but Manhattan, that was the fast track, dominated by far better known developers. And Donald came into that market and became a major player.
He moved his family into the opulent penthouse at Trump Tower. The new pad spanned 3 floors, overlooking Central Park and decorated in marble and 24-karat gold. Together, Donald and Ivana hit the hottest spots, rubbed elbows with the city's upper echelon, and graced the covers of magazines across the country. They had 2 kids, Donald Jr. and Ivanka, with a third, Eric, on the way. His glamorous, picture-perfect family complemented his business profile.
There were a lot of power couples at that time. And subsequently, every one of them got divorced. And Yvonne and Donald were like the golden couple.
With Trump Tower complete and the construction of his Atlantic City casino underway, Trump made another huge wager in the world of sports.
I'm very happy that Mr. Trump has decided to buy this team because I think he can really do a much better job for the fans in this area and for the players and for the team than I can.
For a reported $9 million, he bought the New Jersey Generals of the startup United States Football League.
He liked politics, but not as much as he liked sports. He loved sports.
Trump and Ivana relished their new purchase. The team, the games, the cheerleaders.
Donald bought this football team called the Jersey Generals. So we had the tryouts for the Jersey Generals. We had like about 150 girls in the lobby of the Trump Tower. And Andy Warhol was there, and Leroy Neiman, and a lot of important people in New York. And Ivana designed the outfits for the Jersey Generals, and they were absolutely gorgeous.
Some speculated Trump bought the team hoping the USFL would merge with the NFL, making him the owner of an NFL team at a fraction of the cost. Trump denied that was the case.
I don't want to merge. I would prefer, if I have my choice, I would prefer seeing this league competing against the NFL. They have some real problems.
He rated NFL rosters, inking big stars to big contracts.
Brian Sipe, who's just signed a contract to become the quarterback of the New Jersey Generals.
He also snatched Doug Flutie to team up with his other Heisman Trophy winner, Herschel Walker. But his big shakeup would be switching from a spring to autumn playing schedule, going head-to-head with the NFL. It was this move that led to a lawsuit against the established league.
The NFL has had a monopoly position, in my opinion, on football during the Sundays, being on all 3 networks, et cetera, et cetera.
The USFL won the case, but the verdict was a Pyrrhic victory. The jury agreed with Trump and declared the NFL an illegal monopoly, but the USFL was awarded a mere $1 in damages, tripled to $3 plus 76 cents in interest. The USFL folded soon after. It was a lesson for Trump in how hard it is for second-tier newcomers to challenge established institutions. But at least Trump's real estate empire was looking up. May 1984, Harrah's at Trump Plaza opened in Atlantic City. It was a massive success as the casino business poured fast cash into the Trump empire. Back in New York City, Trump finally had a plan for his last Penn Central rail yard property that he had won the rights to develop on back in the 1970s.
Trump, it seems, always has something on the easel. He calls his latest project Television City. It includes a proposed 130-story tower that would become the world's tallest building.
It's not that everything that Trump touched turned to gold. That's clearly not the case. There was Television City, which was an idea that he had that never got off the ground.
The state-of-the-art complex along the Hudson River was going to be the new headquarters for NBC.
For being here, we appreciate it. We didn't expect such a great turnout. Because of the great location,
allows us to build the monumental and the majestic development that New York City should have.
The development generated fierce opposition from nearby residents.
Trump's West Side project could bring 10 to 20,000 new residents to an area already congested with new high-rises and the older, massive Lincoln Towers complex.
Mayor Ed Koch was also against the project, and ultimately he refused to give Trump the tax breaks that would have aided his efforts to build the development.
The city of New York is in serious trouble, and the city of New York itself is suffering, in my opinion, from the most corrupt administration and the most incompetent.
Back at home, Donald and Ivana sought a family refuge away from the Big Apple.
There is one thing which we definitely don't have, and that's a privacy. We have a hard time to walk to Trump Tower, or just stroll on the streets. And it's not because the people, they just come and they want to be nice and they want to give you the compliment, but it's hard, it's very hard.
Trump bought Mar-a-Lago, the Depression-era Palm Beach estate of heiress Marjorie Merriweather Post. The lavish mansion had become a white elephant among Palm Beach's old money WASP establishment. But Trump loved its over-the-top aesthetic. He compared the property to the likes of Breaker's Mansion in Rhode Island and Hearst Castle in California. The estate was on the market for $20 million, but Donald paid $8 million. Even better, only $2,811 was out of his own pocket.
When Donald took over Mar-a-Lago, it was in a total state of disarray, but it was worn out looking. And Ivana took every piece of fabric and had it replicated, so everything was at its completely pristine self.
It's a huge house. It has 118 rooms. We don't use them all. They are all in absolutely superb shape because we made sure we restored them.
Back in New York, Donald found a project that would earn him the reputation as a businessman that was better than the politicians at getting things done for the people.
When he lived at 800 Fifth Avenue, he looked out on Wallman skating rink. And he would say, what's going on there? I mean, when is the city going to get it together?
The city owned this skating rink in Central Park. It had been completely non-functional. Under Mayor Ed Koch, the city had been unable to rejuvenate it. Donald ultimately took on the project, developed it on time, under budget, and reopened it to the public.
Perhaps the best part of the project, showing off in front of his nemesis, New York City Mayor Ed Koch.
For 8 years, I've been waiting for this rink to be completed, and finally I said, forget it. And we took it over, we redesigned it, and we, in 3.5 months, have built the greatest rink probably anywhere in the nation.
Was one of his signature accomplishments, and of course proved that free enterprise, private business, could function much more effectively than government.
Behind the flashy developments and headlines were stories about Trump, both good and bad. On one hand, he was a tight-fisted landlord, kicking old people out of their apartments.
It was about 4 years ago that John Moore first learned of Trump's plans to demolish the structure and put up another luxury building. A quarter of the apartments here are now empty. The remaining tenants are either rent-controlled or rent-stabilized. Moore described what he called harassment by Trump to get them out.
He wouldn't let the handyman even change light bulbs for 77-year-old ladies with broken hips.
But for all those stories depicting Trump as a hard-nosed businessman, there was also plenty of reports of his soft heart.
This is an article that concerned a kid who had a degenerative disease, and somebody let Trump know that this kid was a Trump fan and that he was dying. And Trump spent the whole day with the kid. There were no cameras around. It's just a story reported in a newspaper out there somewhere. And you could say, well, Trump did it because this kid, idealized Trump. And my response to that is, lots of people idealize Trump. He doesn't spend a day with them. He did it because of compassion and because he cared about what happened to the kid.
Developer Donald Trump has hit it big in Atlantic City. He's just wrapped up a $79 million deal to buy Resorts International, and that deal now means that Trump will have control of 3 existing casinos.
In Atlantic City, Trump added a second casino and then a third. Part of his plan to revamp Atlantic City was to bring the sport of boxing. To do this, he enlisted the help of boxing legend Don King.
We revolutionized the sport of boxing. The combination with the double D, as we would call it, you know what I mean, Donald Trump and me. You know, we would be able to do things simultaneously, promoting my fighters and promoting his club and his hotels. It just was fabulous.
Together, they got to work making Atlantic City a destination that could rival Las Vegas as the boxing capital of the world. In 1987, capitalizing on his visibility as one of the most intriguing businessmen in the world, Random House published Trump, The Art of the Deal. It was a part memoir, part business book. Hard to believe, but Trump was initially reluctant to do TV interviews.
Before that, he didn't like press, didn't want to do interviews, didn't want to do a thing. But the minute the book came out, he realized that he had to do these public appearances, book signings, to make the book popular. Then all of a sudden he started seeing all this fabulous press, and then he got into it. And Donald was determined that his book was going to be the biggest seller book of all times.
With the media buzz around him, he used the opportunity to scope out the possibilities in yet another field, politics. The presidential primaries were just around the corner.
People have mentioned, people have done polls, and I guess somehow I come out well in polls. And based on that, they always seem to think of me as a candidate for something.
He was talking politically in ways that made you think that he was interested in running for office.
On September 2nd, 1987, he placed in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Boston Globe full-page ads criticizing U.S. foreign policy.
In it, the New York real estate tycoon said he thinks the United States is being taken for a bad ride on those tankers it's defending in the Persian Gulf.
Why'd you write the letter?
Because I'm frustrated at looking and seeing the stupidity of what's going on in this country with respect to essentially our foreign policy.
1 month later, he visited New Hampshire. Trump had met Roger Stone in 1979, when Stone was working for presidential hopeful Ronald Reagan. Now Trump was enlisting the political operative to further his own presidential ambition.
We took an exploratory trip to New Hampshire, where he got extraordinary publicity. And what were his themes? Trade, NATO, military preparedness, all of the things that he ultimately would be elected president on decades later. So I recognized as early as 1988 that he had the independence, the stature, the stamina, because running for president is a marathon, to not only be a great presidential candidate, but potentially to be a great president. I think he liked the publicity attendant to it, but at that point I think he had other real estate mountains that he wanted to climb.
Some thought teasing a presidential run was just a media stunt to sell more books. If so, it worked. The Art of the Deal became a New York Times #1 bestseller and number 18 on the bestsellers list for the entire decade. Plus, while Trump didn't run for president this time around, he got people talking.
He met former President Richard Nixon at Yankee Stadium for a Yankees game, and the very next day I got a call from Nixon, and Nixon said, "Well, I met your man Trump." I said, "Well, really, what did you think?" He said, "I'm telling you, this guy has got it. I mean, if he ever gets into politics, he really could go all the way."
It was around this time when the rumor mill began to churn about his personal life. Word was that Trump, the serial flirt, wanted an open relationship, an idea that traditional Ivana refused to entertain. As he spent more and more time at his Atlantic City casinos, a young blonde knockout was increasingly spotted in his company.
I told Ivana that I heard that Donald was cheating on her. So she said, "Why don't we call Donald and ask him?" So they put me on the phone. I mean, I can't even imagine that I did this. And I said, "You know, I heard you were cheating on Ivana, but I defended you." And he said, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You know, that's not true."
Trump continued gallivanting in Atlantic City, where his bet on boxing was really paying off. He brought in boxing superstar Mike Tyson and paid big numbers to host the sport's greatest fights.
Mike Tyson, one of the most exciting and provocative boxers in the world. Mike Tyson fought Jose Ribalta. Then they come up with Mike Tyson against Tyrell Biggs. And then we have Mike Tyson versus Larry Holmes. We got Mike Tyson versus Michael Spinks. Mike Tyson versus Carl Williams.
It was Tyson who brought in high rollers from around the world, making these boxing matches the hottest ticket, the coastal town the hottest destination, and Trump the hottest name.
I would see Donald out sometimes, at events or whatever it was, the girls would like stand on chairs and like jump on top of him. I always found the girls to be much more aggressive towards Donald than Donald was towards the girls.
Madonna, Bruce Willis, and other Hollywood royalty whooped it up at the Boardwalk hotels.
Donald Trump brought excitement to Atlantic City. He brought the provocation and the instigation of competitiveness, and all the other hotels and casinos benefited by his overall pioneering effort.
By the late 80s, he had all but taken over the Boardwalk town. Government officials feared he was gaining too much control over the state's gaming industry.
Donald Trump's casino hotels account for 1/3 of all the rooms, almost half of the exhibition space, and more than 1/3 of all the parking spots. Almost 1 out of every 3 gambling tables in Atlantic City are located in Trump casinos, as are almost 1/3 of all the slot machines.
For me, growing up not far from Atlantic City, New Jersey, where there were a number of Trump casinos and hotels and properties, we all knew who Donald Trump was. And there he was seen mostly as somebody who had helped to create a lot of economic development, jobs, and improvements in and around that entire area that were measurable and consequential.
Trump kept adding to his New York City portfolio, too. In 1988, he bought the landmark Plaza Hotel on Central Park.
The Plaza is considered the greatest piece of real estate, certainly anywhere in this country.
He named Ivana the manager of the exclusive property.
We are shooting for the 5-star. If there is a 6-star, maybe we're going to invent it with a few other hotels. But we are perfectionists, and it's going to Plaza. It's a flagship of Trump organization, and we are going to treat this as such.
Some speculated Trump put Ivana in charge to keep her safe distance from his fun and games in Atlantic City, where he was fraternizing. His big-ticket buying spree continued with the purchase of a $30 million yacht, which he named the Trump Princess.
When he bought the Trump Princess, I don't think he spent one night on it. He was on it and off of it. He was never a person that went on vacations. He always had his eye on the ball. He was a focused guy.
Before he became a serious politician, he would opine about anything and everything. If there was an issue that was getting attention, Donald would jump in the middle of it.
One of the city's best-known names, Donald Trump, took the incident that occurred in Central Park to launch full-page ads in the 4 dailies calling for the death penalty and support of the police.
It was one of the most famous crimes of the 80s. A female jogger was assaulted and raped in Central Park. The attack nearly killed her. Trump saw the crime as a symbol for New York's decline and hung the blame on his nemesis, Mayor Ed Koch. Koch hit back.
The Trump ad is an ad which conveys that Donald Trump is filled with hate. I can understand that, but that won't solve any problems. What you should have with respect to that atrocity that took place in Central Park is righteous anger. Big difference between righteous anger and hate. Hate is unreasoning.
When Mayor Koch talks about the fact that I and other people in this city aren't supposed to hate people that go around killing and robbing and mugging all of us, then I disagree with the mayor. Obviously, anger hasn't done enough.
The 5 teens were convicted and carted off to prison, but their convictions were vacated a decade later when another man confessed to the crime, and DNA confirmed his guilt. Meanwhile, Trump's personal life continued to attract the attention of gossip columns around the country, as Donald and Marla were frequently spotted together. The media had a field day with the speculation.
The Today paper says Marla was seeing a middle-aged Houston businessman when he introduced her to Trump. The report paints Marla as a schemer who set out to snare the billionaire tycoon, even though she knew he was married.
Trump denied the rumors.
Trump is telling the Post he has never cheated on his wife during their 12-year marriage and that he and Marla Maples are just good friends.
The Donald continued with his spending, this time purchasing an airline, the Eastern Airlines shuttle, that flew from New York to Washington.
Donald Trump is predicting that his Trump shuttle will soon overtake its rival, Pan Am shuttle. He intends on accomplishing this goal by offering the passengers, who are mainly business travelers, better service and more convenience.
Just months after the purchase, fears of a recession began surfacing.
More disturbing economic news today. The government's index of leading economic indicators slid 0.3% in February. That's the first drop recorded in 6 months. Many financial experts say it's just one more sign the economy is slowing down and we may be moving into a recession.
Signs pointed for Trump to stop spending, but that wasn't in the entrepreneur's nature. He built even more real estate, pursued a third-tier baseball league, piloted a TV show, amongst a number of other questionable financial decisions. In the midst of it all, a devastating event. 3 of Donald Trump's Atlantic City casino executives were killed in a helicopter crash.
Authorities say the 3 executives of the Donald Trump Organization were on the chopper that went down on a highway median while returning to Atlantic City from New York.
Just 2 months later, another event that would shake up Donald's life.
My girlfriend called me. She was in Aspen. She said, "Oh my God, I'm watching Ivana on the ski lift, and here comes Marla." I said, "Who's Marla?" She said, "Marla's Donald's girlfriend." I said, "Donald's girlfriend? What are you talking about?"
One eyewitness says hundreds of skiers at Bonnie's restaurant in Aspen watched in amazement as Ivana reportedly had a showdown with Donald and Marla, telling her to keep away from her husband. Donald then is said to have whisked the irate Ivana away down the slopes, where they continued their battle for some 20 minutes.
She said, and Ivana's crying. I'm on the phone, I'm listening to this, and I was like mortified. And she said, "Your husband is in love with me, and I'm going to end up marrying him." I was shocked and hurt, and I felt, so close to the situation.
Tabloids went crazy over the couple's spectacular breakup.
Who knew that Donald was going to be on the front page of the paper for 58 days back to back? I mean, it was Donald's sex life told. Donald's the greatest in bed. Every cover of the Post, the Daily News, everything, was all about Donald and Ivana getting divorced.
Celebrity royalty, the king and queen of America, until today.
The economy went bad, the helicopter crash, the divorce, so it all sort of dovetailed in the different things that were happening at the same time.
Donald Trump spent decades amassing a massive empire and net worth, but now he was on the brink of losing it all.